morning. Very warm welcome to our guests here at St. Mike's. It's good to have you. Welcome. So a few years ago, I went to the house of one of our parishioners for dinner. And as I got there, their teenagers were watching this movie, Marley and Me. Anybody ever seen Marley and Me? I love the movie. But if you've never seen Marley and Me, it's about this dog, right? So this couple, they get married and they agree to get a dog. They say, I'm not going to get attached to the dog. And of course they get attached to the dog. And as time goes on, they get really emotionally attached to this dog. And at the very end of the movie, unfortunately, they have to put the dog down because it gets sick. And anybody that's ever lost a dog or a pet, right? Boy, it hits you hard, doesn't it? As I'm watching that, I'm like a sobbing idiot. And it made me think of when I was on a flight one time watching the movie Coco. And I started crying as I was watching Coco, and the stewardess comes by and she said, Father, do you need a hug? Just need a hug. But it's hard. It's hard to lose these animals. You know, you get very, very attached. But it does kind of beg this question, yeah? Why death? Why death? Why do people die? Why do things die? Why do animals die? Why do plants die? Why death? Is this some kind of sick joke from God? I mean, God, you're all powerful. You're all love. So what's up with this? It's a legitimate question. Anybody that's lost somebody very close to them, anger at God is 100% natural. Especially those who have lost children. In fact, it can be a very beautiful prayer. This guy here, John Paul II, he used to say this: death is not the end, it's only the beginning. Death is not the end, it's only the beginning of the journey. That's where the journey starts. And yet the choices we make right now guide where that journey is going to be. At his own death, that was the largest religious event in the history of mankind. 2.5 billion people watched it. 10 million in and around Rome. Are you ready, brothers and sisters, to meet the Lord? Are you ready? Because at some point, this is what's going to happen. We're going to die, and we're going to kneel before Jesus, and we're going to present an accounting of our life. And the way that works is, we're going to see it, everything we've done and failed to do, as we say in the Confiteor. I confess to you, Almighty God, and to you, my brothers and sisters, what I've done and failed to do. We're going to see it, and He's going to see it. It's called the particular judgment. There's nothing concealed that will not be revealed, nor whispered in secret that will not be made known. We will see it, and He will see it. And He'll say, let's talk about this. Here's the problem, brothers and sisters, in our culture. We don't have a vocabulary for death. A lot of people don't know how to talk about death, so they don't. They don't talk about it. I would say the two most avoided topics in most families, death and sex. And I don't talk about it, so they don't. Okay? But if it's true that death is not the end, it's only the beginning, this is joy. I mean, has anybody ever come to the Easter Saturday, the Holy Saturday Mass? It's like the longest Mass of the whole year. They have like 95 readings or something like this. Not quite that many. But the whole church is dark, and the priest walks in with the Easter candle, and everybody lights their candle from that Easter candle. You know what that represents? That death itself has died. It's died. that God has overcome death. Pope Benedict XVI said this. He said, when we get to heaven, we're not going to be going into a place that we've never been before. When we get to heaven, we'll be going to a place that we remember because we came from there. Deep in the heart of every human being, we know this. That's why nothing else suffices. This is only the beginning of the journey, folks. Let me throw some stats at you. Did you know that every year 58 million people die? That's 157,000 people every single day, or one person every 1.6 seconds. Since Father Ben has been standing here running his mouth, a lot of people have gone home to Jesus. Did you know that every day you and I take about 23,000 breaths? It's 23,000 gifts from God. Because the truth is, one day you and I will wake up and get dressed, and it will be the last time we get dressed. One day we will brush our teeth, and it will be the last time we brush our teeth. One day you will kiss your spouse and your kids. It's going to be the last time. You and I can die in a room full of people with your grandchildren holding your hands. And at some point, all those faces will dissolve away, and there will be only two people in the room. You and Jesus Christ. Are you ready? Death is not the end, it's only the beginning. It's only the beginning. Allow me to give you 3 points of suggestion. Okay, just 3. Here you go. 3 points of suggestion about death. Number 1, plan your funeral. You know, this is coming like Christmas. Okay, we know it's coming. Plan your funeral. Where do you want to have it? What readings do you want? Okay? I can tell you, years ago, I decided to plan my own funeral and get the songs together for my funeral. I know if I don't, in the diocese, they're going to sing Kumbaya. I know they are. All right? So we ain't having that. All right? If you don't do this, someone else is going to do it for you. You want to know what gets on my last nerve? This. Often elderly people will say, Father, I don't want to be a burden on my children. And yet, by not addressing the death issue, it becomes a burden for their children. Not that the person is a burden, but if you don't choose what you want for your funeral, that's going to fall to somebody else. And often what will happen with siblings, I'm sorry to say, well, how come he gets to do the reading? How come she gets to bring up the gifts? Address it. Number 2, do your last will and testament. Do your last will and testament. I know many people who are brilliant, who actually have money, who have never done this. All right? Oh, later. They kick the can down the road and eventually the can shows up. This past year is funny. I went to go get my last will and testament from my attorney, Jeff. And I go to see him, and he's laughing hysterically. When I show up, I said, Jeff, what's so funny? He said, Father, when you have nothing to leave anybody. He said, to do your will, I hit print. Okay, even if you have nothing to leave anybody, do it. All right? You have a sense of peace. Everybody knows what Mom wanted before she passed. Finally, your advanced directives and your durable power of attorney. If you get in an accident, heaven forbid, driving home today from Mass, and you're on a respirator, you're on life support, what do you want done? What do you want done? Do you want to be kept on life support for 30 years? Make that decision now, because if you do not, someone else is going to be in a very difficult situation. Most likely the person you wake up next to or your child. No, we need to develop a vocabulary for death. These children of ours deserve us to have the courage to talk about death. They have a right to know about death. Okay? But it's not the end, it's only the beginning. Many parents say, "Oh, honey, you don't need to know about that. Don't worry about that." You're doing them a disservice. Brothers and sisters, it's not the end, it's only the beginning. If you're going to be afraid of something, for heaven's sakes, be afraid of the right thing. Again, if you're going to be afraid of something, be afraid of the right thing. For instance, when you go to the beach, are you more afraid of getting bit by a shark or getting skin cancer? Because you have about 700 times more likely chance to die of skin cancer than a shark. Are you more afraid of flying in an airplane crash, or driving in Memphis? You know the answer to that one. I'm not asking you to be afraid of death. What I'm asking you to be ready for is what comes after it. Many people will plan and save for retirement, but they never think about the retirement after their retirement. The real retirement. They'll be ready to retire. But what about the retirement after their retirement? You know, when my grandfather, God rest his soul, when he got towards the end of his life, he once asked me, he said, "Ben, is there anything you want in the will?" And I said, "Yeah." I said, "Granddaddy, I want your handicapped parking sign." And he didn't leave it for me. He said, "Man, you're killing me. What do you want on your tombstone?" I tell people I want on my tombstone, "The man loved butter." All right, we'll say it in Latin, it'll sound better. All right? Are you ready? Are you ready? I hope so. Because the truth is, for us, this is not something scary. I mean, let's be honest. Sometimes people die in horrific ways. That's 100% natural to be a little scared about that. But when we pull back the veil of this life, and we see all these faces of people that we have known in this life, that have gone before us, and they come to meet us and they say, "You're going to love this place." That's joy. It's only the beginning. I just want to close with this. Many of you know that in Memphis we went through about 7 waves of the yellow fever. The big one was in 1873. 24 police officers died. About 24 doctors died. Teachers, 51 nuns. 51 nuns now buried in Calvary Cemetery. They stayed behind to help these people. That year we had 24 Catholic priests die. 1 year. 24 priests. A few years later, in 1877, when they laid the cornerstone for St. Patrick's Church downtown, they buried 19 priests later. In 1873, Bishop Feehan, who was our bishop at the time, came and had one funeral mass with 12 priests who had died. Can you imagine at St. Peter's downtown, 12 coffins. If you look up, you will notice that we have 12 lamps here, 6 and 6 on both sides. Kind of the same thing. So Bishop Feehan wrote a letter home to his mother in Ireland, and this is what he said. He said, "Mom, I write to you today in tears because I buried 12 priests today, some of whom were newly ordained. But they are not tears of sorrow. They're tears of joy, because these young men could have left Memphis and they stayed behind like spiritual dads, giving their life for their kids. Why? Because they knew what was coming after, and they died with joy. And he said, I write to you out of pride that my sons gave their life for their flock. Oh, love it. Brothers and sisters, death is not the end. It's only the beginning. That's where the journey starts. And for us as Catholics, when we pull back this veil and these people are there to meet us and they say, come, enjoy now the fruit of all those sacrifices, of all that pain, and all those days when you woke up at 3 a.m. worried about this and this and this and this. Be at peace, because your time has now come.